Welcome to a brand new episode of the post game. I'm your host, Davion. I'm joined by Lillian
What's up?
and Oronde.
What's poppin'?
Welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna change formats a little bit. On the channel, we usually would just post like 3 to 4 videos a week, but we're gonna condense it a little bit, especially during the off season for most sports. I know NBA and March Madness and all those things are going on, but we're gonna change some things up. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna produce one video a week, which will probably come out on the Thursday every single week. It's gonna be for about an hour and a half long, and we're gonna go through different topics talking about like today's video, we're gonna talk about March Madness, NBA, and some NFL stuff as well. So let us know how you feel about that in the comments. I'm excited to try this new format and hopefully get a bunch of you guys watching this video. But all right, so today we're gonna start off by talking about March Madness. We're gonna talk about the women's and the men's games. But so far, how have y'all liked March Madness, or have y'all been surprised by anything?
I've been surprised by a couple teams winning, couple teams losing,
Yeah.
but there are some storylines that have been consistent, which have been awesome.
Mhm.
Like, uh, for example, Caitlin Clark being the bomb.com,
Yeah.
UConn's dominance, both UConn's
Both
dominance,
UConn teams, yeah.
Purdue's dominance, um, though Duke and Chapel Hill being out so early is definitely a shock
I think
for me.
Duke, no. Chapel Hill, yes. I mean, we're talking about those two teams. We also got to talk about the incredible teams for both the men and women's of NC State. I mean, getting to the Final Four for both of those two programs is pretty incredible. And something that I've been realizing also is that like NC State as a whole, as a school, has been on the rise sports wise. Their football team 2 years ago was one of the best. Was I think a top 25 team if I'm not mistaken. Last year they had a pretty questionable year, but I think they'll bounce back. Now they got two of their teams in basketball or in March Madness are now in the Final Four. So it's like NC State is now becoming a team or a school that you have to really consider thinking about going to. And so yeah, so let's look at some of the main things that I realized about March Madness. Um, I think we have to talk about Kentucky. We have to talk about Kentucky. We got to talk about Tennessee. Purdue. Like all these teams are have done the things that they've shocked the world a lot. So let's start off with Kentucky. Were y'all shocked by Kentucky losing so early on?
Not at all.
Absolutely.
I was. I was.
Here's what I'll say, and I don't think it's even necessarily a historical thing with Kentucky. I think it's in college basketball when you see a team that's more reliant on threes like Oakland is,
Mhm.
especially with a player that that exclusively shoots threes. If a team gets hot in college from behind the arc, you better pray to God that you're also hot because 15 of 31 in college is going to win you a game 9 times out of 10. It really just is that simple. And I knew Oakland, if they got hot, I was confident a hot Oakland team beats Kentucky. That's why I wasn't surprised.
I would say
I don't think
something.
Kentucky could keep up.
I think something that, really I heard a bunch of guys talking about it when it first happened, but something that really got me um when I was watching it was how teams have players who go one and done. We have teams like let's for example Kentucky. They have a large amount of freshmen, sophomores there, and you look at it and it's like they don't have the experience, they don't have vets, they don't have that thing that can hold their team together. And that's a reason they crumbled as well because they aren't defensively sound whatsoever. The defense has been a problem for them all season long, and we saw that today, or we saw that on in the first round. But I mean, to that point, you see teams like NC State who have grad players, who have seniors. Their starting 11 is filled with grad players and seniors, and now they are in the Final Four. And I think there's so many, like Oronde said, there's so many storylines that can be told and watched during this time of the year, and it's just it's interesting, man. It's really interesting to me.
Another thing about like one and done teams, another team that I was following because I have a friend that plays for him, Nebraska. They
Mhm.
had a lot of transfers come in this season. Now it worked. They just lost to a really hot Houston team, or not Houston, Texas A&M team that shot lights out. They had this one, or both their main point scorers are left-handed, but that game against Nebraska, they couldn't miss. Bro was just pulling up from like 5 feet from the 3-point line and knocking it down. It was incredible. But they put that team together out of transfers, and it almost worked. If they come back next year, they might have another deep run.
Yeah,
But you have to have that chemistry in order to keep the table near them, because it just got yanked out from underneath them.
absolutely. So a team, there's so many teams in this, but we're gonna cover them all, but we're gonna talk about some of the hot ones. A team like Alabama, they are one of the most high-powered electric offenses I've seen in a long time. They will run you all game long. And watching, because I've watched their Clemson game, I watched their UNC game, like they will shoot you out of the building and there's nothing you can do about it. And I think they will have to play against a very good UConn team, who, in my opinion, has already won it. I think UConn is going to be they're the best team in the country right now because UConn are very adaptable. They will go they'll go full court offense, they'll go half court offense, they'll go full court defense, half court defense. They can play any way you want to play. And I think watching them play UConn, it's it's really showed me what real and good basketball looks like. And I'm excited to watch these games on Saturday because I think, they're gonna be pretty electric and pretty fun. But I think UConn's going to win it all.
See, what I feel about UConn is that, yeah, they probably have the most fundamentally sound team that's left,
Yeah.
and they're the
Purdue's
perennial
there.
they're the perennial favorite. Well, I like Purdue because of Zach Edey. He's probably the smartest big in the country right now in
Mhm.
avoiding foul trouble. That's not the point. Not the point I'm trying to make. I think I can't use that analogy. Never mind. UConn might be too big to fit, too big to succeed. They might be too perfect.
Mm,
This is quote. This is the titular name, March Madness. I expect them to fall apart somewhere because they've had a perfect run. It's another perfect run, them and Purdue. So which one is the unstoppable force? Really, that's how I see it. I kind of want to bet against UConn solely because they're too good.
okay, so here it is. UConn plays Alabama, Purdue plays NC State. Who's gonna make it to the championship?
I I love Purdue. Zach Edey's great. I don't really know any other player on the team because they're not as important. But right now, the hot hand, I'm not betting against NC State.
NC State.
I'm not betting against them. It was one of it's one of those. It's one of those. It's one of those runs.
I think
Now,
I
I
think
think
go ahead.
I think you can I think UConn wins or UConn beats Bama, but
Hmm.
I can see State keeping it close and or winning.
I I think NC State, they've obviously had a hell of a run stemming all the way back to the ACC tournament and that game against Virginia. I think that every time we see in March Madness one of those runs, if that team is below an 8 seed, it never gets past the Final Four.
Yeah.
I think an 11 seed NC State that going into the postseason was never supposed to be a March Madness to begin with, going against Purdue, as experienced as they are, talking about seniors and super senior DJ Burns and all that, I think Purdue also has experience.
I agree.
Edie's been there for a few years. Braden
But
Smith's an amazing point guard. I don't think NC State keeps the magic alive
but
anymore.
the problem with Purdue is that not I know they're one of the favorite bracket winners, I think, across the country, but like, what did they do last year? Fall apart near the end. Actually, I don't even think they made out the
No,
first
no, no,
round.
no. Their last couple of years, they've fallen apart earlier. I mean, this
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
fell
lost to
apart earlier.
FAU last year.
They're keeping it together, but do you trust them?
I don't trust them once they have to play UConn, but I trust them against NC State because it each time they lose, it's because the team they're playing is so much quicker and smaller than them that it leaves Zach Edey high and dry on the perimeter. NC State's not going to do that. Zach Edey doesn't have to go guard DJ Burns at the 3-point line. He's not he doesn't have to guard ISO, and that's why Purdue matches up well. If Edey can just live in the paint, Purdue doesn't have problems. That's why Purdue's going to have problems against UConn though, because Edey can't live in the paint against Donovan Clingan.
you know.
It's not going to be easy post looks for Edey in the championship.
So who do you have winning it all?
I have UConn. UConn's been my choice
Yep.
since the bracket came out.
Yeah, I'm UConn as well. I mean, I think NC State have had a great run, but I think Purdue are going to battle and put them down early. Um, I think we're going to get two number ones in the final, and it'll be an electric game. And I'm excited for it. I mean, just to move on from that a little bit, a team that I loved watching this season, was Tennessee. Dalton Knepp is one of the best players in college basketball, plain and simple. Went and saw him play Chapel Hill the Chapel Hill this season, which he played incredibly. But I think when you look at it, Tennessee are gonna or that I mean that Tennessee game against Purdue showed me that Purdue are actually about it, and they showed me that they are actually at a point in their lives where they want to go win it all. I think Duke, yet there are four. I don't think this was Duke's year. I don't think are that good of a team. And I think who they beat? Duke beat Houston, which in my opinion is obvious. And I think NC State beating Marquette is pretty obvious as well because Marquette struggled against here, let me get it. So Marquette struggled against um
Colorado.
Colorado, which to me already showed that that was a thing because I think NC State's drastically better than Colorado. And I think Marquette is very one-dimensional when it gets to the fourth quarter, when it gets down to that last little bit in the game. And I think NC State showed that and brought that out of them. And when it comes to Houston, I watched their game against Texas A&M. Houston have Sheed, who is incredible, will be a star one day in the NBA. And they have a shooter, and then that's it. Their offense is relying on one person to facilitate, make a bucket, and one person to make shots, and that was it. And I think that's why A&M almost beat Houston in the second round. But Houston, when she went down, I think it was obvious that Duke was going to win that game. So I think we got to a point where it's like we know. I mean, NC State, don't get me wrong, they've played fantastic, but I don't think they're at a point where they're gonna play good enough to compete with Purdue. And so looking at a different angle, let's look at the women's, man. South Carolina is still on a tear. We know that. We know that South Carolina we're gonna have their way when it comes to March Madness. Um, let's talk about this Elite Eight matchups because if you want to watch good basketball for any sport, NBA, WNBA, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, look at this Elite Eight matchup. Don't get me wrong, though. The Oregon State and South Carolina game, all right, we can write that off. But NC State versus Texas, NC State have been incredible this season, or in the postseason. They knocked off Stanford, which is a big one for them. They knocked off Texas. Now they're going to meet South Carolina on Friday at 7 o'clock. That's going to be a great game as well. And then you got UConn versus USC, Paige Beckers, Juju, and then you have LSU and Iowa. I mean, these are two of the best games that we'll ever get to see
That
of all time.
that LSU Iowa game pulled in, I believe the number is 12.8 million eyes for that game.
It was
Not
more
even
than-
including all the illegal sites.
I mean,
Yeah.
that was more than the average viewership for the 2023 World Series and NBA Finals.
Yeah. And only 5 NCAA football games brought in more views.
The only regular season football game, NCAA football game that brought in more views last year was Michigan Ohio State,
Which
Which, you
I
know,
still hate
ridiculous.
y'all
which is
for where
the
they
which
got.
consistently leads all of regular season anyways.
Yeah,
So
that's true. The game.
the fact that this women like 5 years ago, you tell somebody, this women's basketball game and what then was just the women's postseason tournament,
I
it's
think
going to bring in more viewers in the World Series and the finals. So they'd look at you like you're crazy.
And
And
it
here
wasn't even the final. It
I
wasn't even the
just
final.
it
I just
wasn't even
have a
finals,
thought
the
about
Elite Eight.
this.
And now here
I
we are
I
watching
think
Iowa
it
and
was
LSU. Like we're seeing these insane rivalries
Yeah.
that are born, and it's just a great thing for the women's basketball game. It
I
truly.
think it's awesome that we have these amazing, incredible talents and personalities that have even eclipsed the men's game because you can't even name specific players without thinking
Absolutely.
about a team. But on top of the success of these players bringing in all these eyes, I think it perfectly coincided with the expansion of sports betting
Yeah.
that more people are watching, obviously, because they want to win money, but they're like, oh, I'm already here. I might as well watch this great competition and this person go breaking records again and again and again. And speaking of the LSU game, boy,
Incredible.
given what is her name? Haley Van Lilith trouble the whole night.
Haley Van
He
Lith.
had a terrible game.
She had it. She was hung
Yeah, she
out to
got left out on
dry.
an island.
Yeah, she got hung out to dry. LSU's coach, whatever her name is, she's a
Kim
loser
Mulkey.
anyways.
He is a
She's a
loser.
loser. She's a loser anyways. But to lose in this spectacular fashion is really, really the cherry on top.
Yeah.
But hey, Reese is going to be at least could be successful.
Absolutely.
GMs and scouts are already skeptical because she is great in the paint and rebounding, but can she score outside the paint? Can she do that? Will she be able to develop a jump shot for her WNBA career? We'll have to wait and see about that. But now we get UConn and Iowa,
I mean, like,
two of some of the best point guards in
repeat that
recent
one more
memory.
time. We get UConn and Iowa. Like, these are two of the best teams in women's college basketball. Like, I think people are understating how much of an impact women's basketball has become and what they are right now. Because in my opinion, like 5 years ago, they weren't even allowing women's basketball to use the terms March Madness, which is a joke for one. And for two, now they've overtaken the men. Like we have we're watching some of the best basketball that women have played. Granted, in my life, I didn't see the Maya Moores or the what's the lady on TNT? Uh
Candace Parker.
Candace Parker. I didn't see them play. Granted, I wasn't old enough, but to watch Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers, like the entire South Carolina team, like I love watching good basketball, and I'm excited for Friday night. I'm
I
excited to
mean,
watch that game.
I'll be the first to say this right now. I'm more excited to watch Iowa play UConn than I am to watch NC State play Purdue.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's really not close.
If they were on at the
See,
same exact time, who do you think would pull more views? It's easy.
It's honest Iowa, like straight up.
That game
People wanna
might
watch that game.
eclipse the LSU.
dude, the lowest price for the game
Yeah,
for the UConn Iowa game is
yeah.
$945.
I mean, if you think about it, like that game might eclipse the LSU Iowa game.
I mean,
Truthfully,
it really might.
like it has potential to. Do I think it will? I don't know. I think it will be
Probably
up
not,
there.
but
I
what do
don't know
we
necessarily that it
who
will
do
because there
okay
was the whole rivalry thing with Iowa
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. But I
LSU.
think
since we're talking
still,
about this, but who do you think's who's gonna have the bigger impact in this game? Because Clark already had what 41 and 15 against LSU. Can she match
I think
that?
I think
Or
you look at
will Paige put in a better scoring output, scoring show while Caitlin will throw it past the rock a little bit more?
I think Iowa has a deeper bench, so they can throw as many people at Page as they want to and get them into foul trouble and just put them back on the bench. I think they have a deeper bench, and I think that's the only way that they're gonna win, or that they're gonna lose. Because I think Iowa will win this game, um, and they'll play South Carolina on Sunday. But I don't know. I don't know. I think the output is not going to say it's irrelevant because I think these two girls have I mean, watching, because I watched both of those games, watching UConn and Paige, someone said she plays like her own game and effectively. I 100% agree. She does not take a bad shot. She doesn't. And she's efficient, and that team is coached so well. Like you can see that they're coached so well and they're so disciplined. And I mean, Paige and a couple of other girls, they play the whole game. The whole game.
And on that topic, I think it's important to mention that if you want to give them comparisons, you'll see it as a stretch. I know David will see it as a stretch, but like coming back from injury and carrying this honestly no name team for UConn with Paige Buckers, you can say it. You can say it's like a LeBron-esque performance. She's brought this team here, but for Caitlin Clark, it more like Curry because you got the range, you got the play style similarities.
I don't hate it. I'm not gonna sit here and say
I don't have any other better comparisons for that, but that's what it feels like to me. That's what makes the hype.
And honestly, and it's I think when we fell in love with Caitlin Clark last year and a little bit of the year before, that is when the fan base started growing. When we saw Paige Beckers 4 years ago, that's when the fan base started growing. So now we're gonna get two fan bases who absolutely love both of these girls. It's just gonna be, or women, sorry. It's just gonna be one of those things where
And what makes it better about Paige is that we saw her jump onto the field. Fortunately, had to sit out 2 years onto the court. Unfortunately, had to sit out 2 years, but is now back in full power.
Yeah.
Ready to set it all ablaze.
And I will say this about Paige, like the other night, like watching their game, she was not backing down guarding Juju at all. At all. She was like, all right, like, you want to do this? Let's do it. And I think like we don't see those number one players much guarding the other number one player. Like, I just found that very interesting for me from Paige. And that showed a lot of heart and a lot of like, in that mentality that she has. So, I mean, I appreciated that from her. But man, so who do we think is going to win these games? And where do we see each other? Because there won't be another video out before the end of March Madness potentially, but probably not. So who do we have winning it all? South Carolina? I mean, they're unbeatable at this point in our lives.
It's
insane.
It's kind of like what I did for a Super Bowl. The scenario I want and the scenario that's likely to happen. I want Paige and UConn to win.
Really?
Me personally, I'm all for Caitlin.
Love her.
Bigger Paige fan though. Bigger Paige fan.
I would definitely was a Paige fan first, but like I think I'm on my way out.
Yeah, that's fair. But
I still love her dearly, but I'm all
my dream scenario, I'd rather have UConn win it.
Mhm.
But realistically, it's probably gonna be South Carolina. They have a full team. They have a full star-studded team.
Insane.
Well, star-studded is probably not the right word because that's LSU.
Yeah.
Yeah, South Carolina is genuine, just a completely fully rounded team.
Full hoopers.
Like Paige is out there, 7-man rotation, bunch of freshmen on her team. Caitlin Clark's playing with Stolke, and it's like she's got some good players, but it's her and a couple others.
Yeah.
But South Carolina is just
top
and not to write off NC State. This is kind of where the men's team has a better chance of moving on to the women's team.
If NC State beats South Carolina, I would be. Could they beat whoever's on the other side or no?
If they beat South Carolina, they win a championship.
If they can beat South Carolina,
if NC State beats South Carolina, they win a championship.
I would also say, shout out to South Carolina, man. They are 37-0. Like, I don't think people understand how big of a deal that is. They haven't lost. All right. And granted, they're not getting as much TV coverage or TV talk about as Caitlin Clark or Paige, but like they've been nothing short of perfection.
They're number one for a reason. Honestly, who is any of the men's team undefeated?
No.
No,
Oh, so
there hasn't been an
quite
undefeated
they're
men's team
quite
in a while.
literally the best team in the country.
Oh yeah, yeah, they went through. They could probably beat some D2 teams.
So if while we mentioned that, ESPN's matchup predictor, it's pretty bad most of the time, but to have South
Yeah.
Carolina 83% to NC State 16,
What's the
it's pretty
spread for
rough.
that game?
Spread for that game is 11.5 in favor of South Carolina. Over under is 139.
Here's also the last time South Carolina lost a game was March 31st of last year
When they lost to LSU, right?
when they lost to Iowa.
Iowa.
Iowa. Yeah.
Iowa beat South Carolina last year?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was South Carolina's first loss.
Wow, Caitlin.
So, you know,
Huh.
NC State could do it. I really don't want to write them off, but I think South Carolina is just an insane powerhouse, and I don't think NC State has anybody on the level of Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
Also, NC State's they have a nice roster, but as Isaiah James is their only real scorer. Like this girl, 27, 29, 22, 19, 26, just going crazy.
Man, I'm excited though. I'm ready to watch some good basketball this weekend, looking at those two. But let's switch the pace up a little bit. Let's go to the NBA. Looking at the NBA, we are about what, 2 weeks before the NBA the playoffs?
About 8 games for most
What,
teams.
eight games left?
8 games?
Maybe
I
Is
know the
that time
Warriors only have 8
already?
games left. I think the Lakers are in the same boat.
yeah. So
Gosh, that's a tight race.
we're about 8 games left for the rest of the season. Let's start off with the Western Conference. Or should we let's start with the East? It's easier to
Let's
talk.
start with the East. Is easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
East
Yeah,
is much
East is
fun.
Solved.
So
Solved.
the Eastern Conference, in first place, you have the Boston Celtics, Milwaukee Bucks at 2, um, Cleveland Cavaliers at 3, Orlando Magic at 4, the New York Knicks at 5. The Indiana Pacers dropped a little bit. They were at 6. Miami Heat 7. 76ers 8. They fell drastically after Embiid went down, but he is back. Played a little bit last night. The Chicago Bulls
They already had the play-in berth.
they're at 9. And then who's that? The
Atlanta.
the
at 10.
Hawks.
And then the Brooklyn Nets are at 11, trying to sneak in, but I think they're done as well. So
Yeah, I think
they're
if
the last.
Brooklyn
They have the
lose,
team
I
with the
think if
last
they lose
chance,
tonight,
and
they're done.
everybody else is eliminated.
oh really? Okay.
Yeah,
None of the other games will matter. Wow,
and
great.
Brooklyn Nets are on a 2-game losing streak, so that doesn't help them.
I think if the Nets lose tonight, then they're out, and
They're out.
Atlanta clinches a play-in berth.
Perfect. So we got all these games. So let's look at let's start with the play-in. Let's just say right now, Atlanta would play
The Chicago Bulls.
no, Atlanta will play the Heat, I thought. Doesn't
No,
7
no,
play
no. It's 7, 8, 9, 10, and then
Oh,
winner of 9, 10 plays the loser of 7, 8.
okay. Well, so 7, 8, it'll be the Hawks versus so 7, 8 are the Heat and the 76ers. Who would win that game?
The Heat and 76ers.
Right now, the Heat. I don't think Embiid's gonna be close to actually ready for a playoff environment.
I feel bad for Embiid for once. I normally don't because I don't like him, but
Really?
he just got hurt at the wrong time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't like Embiid's play style, but I think it is really unfortunate because I do feel bad for him that he wanted to be eligible for all of the awards and he forced himself to play when he wasn't ready, and it cost him his season and it cost him an MVP.
Yeah. So we got the Heat gonna take that 7 spot, and then Bulls and the Hawks. I think the Bulls take it. I think Atlanta are terrible.
No, I think it's the opposite. I think
it's the
Bulls are
Hawks.
terrible.
Oh, hold on. Let me
In-
phrase that. I think both of these two teams are god awful.
Well,
They're awful. They're so bad. They should
Oh,
not be on
no.
TV at all. That would
So
be
at
the best.
the current moment, ESPN has the Hawks at them and the Bulls at the lowest chances.
They're terrible.
That's the thing is like the play-in was created because like in the West right now you have 11 teams over 500.
Yeah.
So that was the entire point of it. There's 8 teams over 500 in the East. Those should be the 8 playoff teams.
Yeah.
I like the plan. I think it should be a case by case, like it should be triggered in each conference every year, depending on if teams are actually close enough.
Also, shout out to the Warriors for beating the Mavericks and snapping their win streak. But
The Warriors also widening that gap between them and the Rockets.
Yeah.
it's
Rockets
which
were
is
hot,
awesome.
man. Rockets were
But
hot.
Rockets got real hot, and then Tari Eason went on a whole little spiel about how, oh, we're coming for the Warriors, and now the Warriors are on a 5-game win streak. Houston's lost their last 2.
dude, I can't. I'm so impressed with the Western Conference this year. Like I mean, they've always been they've been the strongest conference for the last like half decade.
It's been longer than that.
Maybe I only been paying attention for the last half
Well,
decade.
here's what
Okay,
I'll say is that essentially LeBron ran the East the entire time he was there.
Yeah.
so but
It's been like at least 15 years where the West has just been a stronger conference than the East.
So realistically, we're
uh,
looking at the Heat and the 76ers at 7 and 8. That's what it's gonna be in the playoffs. So in the East, who do y'all think is gonna win it all? Just right now.
Like who's gonna
Win it
win the
all.
Who's
championship?
gonna win the Eastern Conference? Yeah.
Eastern Conference, it'll probably be
It should probably be
Boston.
Boston.
Boston has already started for like the last 6 games. They've already started experimenting with different rotations and defensive
Oh yeah,
styles, so
they're
they can
done.
figure
Yeah,
out
Boston's been on cruise
so
control.
they can figure out how they want to do the playoffs. And I think that's really smart.
I
I
mean,
think that's a good way to use the tail end of your season.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
they're playing a Thunder team right now that's fighting for seeding. Granted, Shea's not playing,
Shea
and
is
they're up by 14 at halftime.
Jeez.
it's 14 at halftime. Good.
Like this is just it's. I'm a Warriors fan. I know we had a super team for years. Boston's a super team. Between Tatum, Porzingis, Holiday, Jalen Brown, and then you have elite role player and Derek White. Al Horford is somehow still good, even though he's like 40. Just it's a super team, and that's okay, man. That's basketball sometimes.
It's a super team with the player who can't dribble to his left.
Well, I mean, you gotta look at it. The Celtics, like, they're a good team, yes, but like they're in a terrible East. Like,
They
look
are
at
like they're
3,
head and
4,
shoulders
5,
above
and
everybody
6.
else.
Huh?
I mean, they're head and shoulders above everybody else. It's not close.
Yeah, no. I mean, what? So the Heat would play the Bucks in the first round. Um, the 76ers would play the Celtics. Like, it'll be over pretty early for both of those two teams. I think the Heat injuries
I I,
killed them.
I don't think that anything's over for the Heat ever.
Well, as a Heat fan, I agree, but I think, man, they were just too hurt this season.
I think. I mean, the crazy Milwaukee's closer right now to the play-in than they are to the 1 seed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy to look at it. I mean,
I mean, shit,
they're only
they're
down
closer
by
to
5 games.
they're as close to the 10 seed as they are to the 1 seed.
Yeah. Wow.
That's how big of a gap Boston has managed to get themselves, and they're just sort of messing around with stuff now.
Yeah. So, we've done with that snooze fest. Let's talk about more important things. The Western Conference, right now the play-in stands. I think the Rockets will not make it. And I think they'll bow down to the Golden State Warriors. So let's look at it. We have at first place the Denver Nuggets. I was gonna say Denver Broncos. That's why my brain lagged. So we got the Denver Nuggets, the Timberwolves at 2, Thunder at 3, Clippers at 4, Mavericks 5, Pelicans 6, Kings 7, Suns 8, like Lakers 9, Warriors 10. Like, that's crazy looking at that 7, 8, 9, and 10. Kings were number 1 in the West last year, weren't they? Or
No, they were
they were
third.
top 3 last year.
Well, I mean, here I actually have a pretty interesting stat here. The Kings had like a 58 win percentage last year, and that gave them third in the West. They actually went up. They're up 0.2% in win percentage this year, and they're seventh.
Oh, the West is hard, man. They've been cooking.
I mean, the West has gotten harder. We thought the West was bad last year. Suns were fourth in the West last year with a 55% win percentage.
Yeah.
They're eighth now with 59.
Jeez.
Lakers have gone up 4%. They went from seventh to ninth. Warriors have gone up 1%. They've gone from sixth to 10th. Like that's how stacked the West is, that these teams that were top 4 teams last year in terms of win percentage are at a higher win percentage and have fallen into the bottom 10.
But this is why it's like it makes the play-in so good though, because we're gonna have the Kings and the Suns.
Well, I mean, we could have the Pelicans and the Mavs, depending on how the rest of the regular season
Oh
plays.
yeah. Oh yeah.
That's how close it is.
Oof. And the Lakers, they've climbed a lot.
I'm sick of the Lakers.
You and everybody else in the country.
I mean,
So,
we all are.
okay, so let's give it a nice prediction. We're in the prediction business a little bit. When you look at the West right now, who's your team that you're gonna hold on to? Because to me, there's only three in the West that I think potentially could have a real problem, or that could be a real problem. That's the Nuggets, the Thunder, and the Clippers. Those are the three
Interesting.
teams I think are the most dominant.
It's not the Clippers.
Granted,
It's not the
listen, I have a
Clippers.
soft spot for the Clippers because I want Kawhi, Paul George to win something. But I think,
Yeah.
like, other than that, no, it's not the Clippers. I think
But the Clippers are beyond falling apart.
Given
Yeah.
given my casual status, my three would be Denver, Minnesota, and Dallas Mavericks.
My 3 would be Denver, Minnesota, and Phoenix. I know Phoenix is the 8 seed right now. I think Kevin Durant, when it comes to the playoffs, is a different beast.
absolutely.
I think LeBron is too, but I also think the
It's
Lakers have way more issues than LeBron.
it's
Yeah.
always been with Katie, because I'm an Katie enjoyer. It's always good that he's never been a regular season merchant,
But do we
unlike some
think?
other players.
But do we think like the Timberwolves are ready?
I think the Timberwolves are ready.
I don't even think it's a fact think about being ready anymore when it comes to NBA. I think it's just a matter of who has the hot hand and who doesn't.
That's
Yeah.
true. And I mean, here's the biggest thing is that Minnesota just played most of this, not most, they've played a decent amount of the season without Cat. And then they're going to have Cat back in the playoffs. They're already the second team in the West. I think giving them Cat back is not
And
unfair, but
and
it makes it
they're
dangerous.
doing this with the fourth lowest points per game.
Yeah, I mean, their offense isn't necessarily stellar. I think it's a good offense. It's their defense that wins them so many games because their defense is outstanding.
They have
And
the
it's
best. They have
gonna
the
get
best.
Rudy. It's
They
gonna get
have
Rudy Gobert his 4th defensive player of the year. I don't think it's his, but he's gonna get it because the team defense is so good.
they have the number one defense in the league when it comes to holding points to 106 a game. That's the lowest in the league.
By a lot. I
Next
think
closest
Mexico
next
is
closest team is the Knicks at 107.9.
I think Denver could go back to back though. Like
Oh, very easily.
I
Denver
think
definitely could.
they played perfect basketball. In a 7-game series, I think they played perfect basketball. Like I
Mm.
think you can take two up off of them because it's a 7-game series and they're gonna have a slouch night. But there's no way that in a 7-game series this team that's like is bad in my opinion.
I'll say I think the biggest frauds in the West right now, outside of the Clippers, because I think the Clippers are massive frauds. I think the Thunder are just not ready.
Okay,
I don't know. I don't know.
I can agree to not ready, but I don't think they're frauds.
I
I don't
think
think they're. I don't
I
think
think
they're
they're frauds in the
frauds.
sense that they're a top 3 team in the West right now, and they're going to get into the playoffs, and they're not going to look like a top 3 team in the West.
I'm okay with that.
I think, especially if they match up with Golden State, because
I
Golden
don't.
State's the one team that's giving them
Okay.
issues this year.
Yeah. If they can avoid Golden State, they should do decent.
Honestly, the only way they avoid Golden State is because right now Golden State's looking at best they do is 7 seed maybe, but they'd have to really fight for that. They don't want to run into Golden State. They can beat everybody else. They have not figured out a way to stop Stephen Curry.
Yeah.
Granted, no team has figured out a way to stop him. He goes nuclear against them every game.
I definitely think like if they got the Draymond Green from last night or the other night, then
Dude, Draymond in the
If they're
last 2
getting Draymond
minutes.
Green putting up 20, 10, and 5 with 6 steals, then Golden State's going to make it to the Western Conference semis. But Draymond Green needs to not get suspended for that to happen. So,
which is plausible.
50-50 shot for the Warriors. I will say Sacramento is such an interesting team to me, though, because they have Domantas Sabonis, who I don't remember the last time he didn't have a double-double.
Yeah.
It's been, let me look, since like November. I'm guessing it might be October, honestly. But it was November 29th against the Clippers was the last time he didn't have a double-double. His streak's at like 60 now. And the Kings are sitting at 7th in the West. I don't know what their issue is. Granted, I do not watch enough of the Kings to say for sure what their issue is. I know Malik Monk is out now. I know that hurts them.
So
But like I don't get it.
so we've looked at a bunch of these teams. Two teams we haven't really, or one team we haven't really talked about. The Pelicans. I mean, Zion Williamson is finally coming around and showing why he is a dominant threat. And the Mavs. I think Luka is insane. And I don't know, man. I think 2 through 8 are going to be very like evenly matched. And I think a lot of these games or series are going to come to game sevens because of how evenly matched they are. And it's just going to depend on who shows up at the end. And I think that to me is a very hard thing to call right now. But I think for sure the Nuggets they're gonna do it. Like they're gonna get as far as possible, personally thinking.
I agree. I think especially with like New Orleans, a healthy Zion could do anything. He could get them very far. They still face that issue of no true point guard.
Yeah.
But do
I
they
think
really
CJ
need a
McCollum
true
works
point
very
guard?
well as a shooting guard,
He's a great two.
but he's not a one. And I think Luca scoring a lot only gets them half so far. Because Luca scoring a lot doesn't beat the Nuggets. It didn't beat the Warriors 2 years ago. It's not going to beat good teams.
Kyrie's gonna have to show up. Is he
Kyrie's
is
going to have to put up 27 a night and 27 a night plus Luca not shot checking, which you just sort of gotta hope on a night to night basis. I
Hmm.
think Dallas has a couple issues. PJ Washington is their biggest issue right now, though, because he has the shot confidence of Jordan Poole and the shot making ability of Jordan Poole.
I shouldn't have
And
laughed at
he's a
that.
4. So
Oh, Jordan.
I can't. I shouldn't have laughed at that.
Okay,
Y'all see him fall last night?
yeah, it was really funny.
terrible, man. So if you had to pick one team to hold on to throughout the playoffs, who would it be?
Give me a bandwagon. Call me a bandwagon. Give me the Nuggets.
Yeah, give me the Nuggets too.
Give me the Timberwolves, man. I really like this Timberwolves team.
Wow, that's crazy. So Nuggets versus the Boston Celtics, NBA Finals. You got the young boys who are not young anymore versus the man, the myth, the Joker. Who you going with?
Nuggets.
Back to back.
If that's the matchup, I got the Nuggets.
Back to back. Back to back like Drake.
Give me the Nuggets.
Well,
The so I'm as much as the Celtics are a well, you can call the Celtics an Eastern Conference merchant if you really want to, but as good as they are, the Nuggets are just better as
yeah.
a whole.
I mean, the Celtics are 20-7 against the West.
Not good enough.
The Nuggets are 33-6 against the East, which is a slightly worse record against the East than the Celtics.
33-6 to 27-7. L schedule makers.
Well, you always play your own conference more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, but still. How am I supposed to compare if they don't play the same games?
By looking at other numbers.
Oronde, this is not the NFL.
I'm sorry. I'm
What
sorry.
is the NFL?
I'm so NFL pilled right now, dog. I
Oh,
miss it. I need
oh,
it.
oh, oh, let me get my transition out. What
Okay.
is NFL? is what we're about to talk about now. So our last segment of the night, NFL free agency slash NFL draft. We're gonna talk about a couple of these things right now. Speaking of the breaking news today, Stephon Diggs traded to the Houston Texans for was it a second round pick?
Something like that.
I think it was a second round pick.
A
And
second
they
and a
also
fifth.
got a fifth and a sixth or something out of it.
Yeah. So, first winners, losers. How do we feel about this trade? Um, what are we thinking here?
I don't think
Very.
anybody won or lost.
I think it's pretty even, but I'm happier for Diggs than I am for the Bills.
I
Also, I
think
just don't like the Bills, but
I
Well,
don't think I'm happy for Diggs. I think he is a bit of a diva.
go ahead. Y'all, I'm gonna let y'all get this out because I'm gonna get in my soapbox here in a second. So go ahead and get
Because
your soapbox.
what?
here's what I'm gonna say is straight up, I think he thinks he's better than he is.
Mm.
He had some, I think the best way to put it is bad games. Straight up. And it's not like he had a bad quarterback. I don't think you can act like you're a top 10 receiver in the league and go up and put, 30 yards against the Chargers, who don't have a great defense, or 26 against the Patriots, or 24 against the Chiefs, or 27 against the Jets, or 34 against a Broncos team that allowed 70 points. I think I think he's a bit of a, I think he thinks he's better than he is. There's a reason every Vikings player in that locker room said that the one guy they wouldn't let date their sister is Stephon Diggs.
Well, that's different reasons.
I think that there's a bit of overlap.
Yeah. So let me get on my soapbox. Let me explain to y'all why I think there's a lot here, and so I'm gonna break it down very nice and slowly to y'all. So first off, I'm gonna start with the Bills. I think the Bills they have been on brink for a rebuild for the past 2 seasons now, and now it's finally getting activated. This trade, I'm surprised didn't happen after last season's playoffs, but it has now happened. So this is gonna now kickstart their rebuild for one. For two, I think when you look at Stephon Diggs, this is the third team now, or the second team that he's now won out of. First, it was Minnesota. Now it's Buffalo. Now he's going to move to Houston and with a new rookie quarterback who he's going to want 10, 15 targets a game. That's not plausible.
I
Now,
don't think he's gonna want that, but
what? But that's what
continue.
he's always wanted.
Continue. I'm gonna let you finish
Has that not been what he's
before I
always
dispute it. I'm gonna let you finish before I dispute it.
So, I mean, he's going to want 10, 15 targets a game. And then if they lose in the playoffs and he doesn't get his target limit, he's going to blame it on the quarterback or he's going to blame it, oh, I didn't get the ball. And so, in my opinion, he's a very selfish player. He's a selfish receiver, and that's what it's been. And so that's why I think Stephon is um I'm not gonna say he's gonna be a problem in Houston. I think I hope I'm happy for him. Good. I'm glad he got his move. He's at that nice tax cut that he has now in Houston or in Texas. So I mean, listen, good for him, but I also think Bills took a hit on that $31 million in dead cap space. That's a big hit that they probably didn't want to take, but it is what it is, man. It is what it is. But that's my opinion about it. Oronde.
I I think that it's good. I truly think that it'll be good for him because he won't have to be the number one like he did in Buffalo or Minnesota. So he'll likely score more touchdowns on less touches. He won't have to have all those touches because see Stroud already has his number one receiver. His name was Tank Dell. Yeah, it's awesome.
I would
Now
argue
he
that
gets the bonus weapon that is Stephon Diggs. I think that'll be great. And if he can build that camaraderie like he had with Josh, maybe a little bit better because Josh obviously didn't want to throw to him in crunch time. Still don't know why. I think it'll be a good rebrand for him. He doesn't have to be the true number one. He'd be a number one option if they double tank. You leave Diggs open. Now you have a problem. It's not like he's going to turn into a Gabe Davis. He's not that bad.
I mean, they weren't doubling tank to begin with though, because teams had to start guarding Nico Collins too.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the fact that they're gonna have three high caliber wide receivers, plus Dalton Schultz at tight end, plus a receiving back in Joe Mixon. Diggs is gonna lose targets. I don't know how Diggs is gonna handle that. I think at first he'll be like, okay, new team, getting used to it, whatever. As long as we're winning. I think as soon as the Texans don't win a Super Bowl, he's gonna be like, okay, now give me the ball and we'll go win a Super Bowl. And it's this whole cycle because it happened with the Vikings, it happened with the Bills. I don't unless D'Amico Ryans is some type of wide receiver whisperer, I don't see it going down differently in Houston.
Hmm. I think I'm pretty confident in him to rebrand and do it well.
I mean, I will admit there's also a part of me that I like young teams and I like the Texans because of that. I
Mhm.
don't want to see like the development of Tank Dell and Nico get stunted a little bit because now there's this new veteran guy that's theoretically a potential wide receiver one come in. But it would also probably be good for the development of CJ Stroud. So, you know, you get some, you lose some.
So
Yeah.
changing gears, just gonna spitball a couple of different things that happened this offseason since this is the first video that we're gonna do. So recently Clyde Edwards-Helaire re-signed with the Chiefs for a year deal. Derrick Henry signed with the Ravens. Steelers got Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Just said Stephon Diggs. Um what else we got? Anything y'all want to yell out? The Chiefs signed Carson Wentz.
They did.
The GOAT. The
Yeah, they
GOAT.
did. Yeah, they signed to a 1 year
Oh,
deal.
that's amazing.
Chris Jones resigned. The Pats keep Kendrick Bourne and Hunter Henry. Uh I
Mike
don't
Williams signed with the Jets. Interesting.
which deserved they wanted to have him take another pay cut after a good year.
Yeah. He had an ACL injury though.
He'll be all right.
Yeah, hope so.
I mean, it's not necessarily free agency, but Chiefs might really want to go get Xavier Worthy.
They need to get something.
That might be a big thing for them.
Yeah.
Uh, a signing that I think is seemingly underrated, mainly because of the team he went to, is Jadeveon Clowney to the Panthers.
Yeah.
I think Jadeveon Clowney paired with Derek Brown, teams might be a little scared to go run against that team.
Speaking of somebody in the pass rush, Hassan Reddick to the Jets for a third round pick. Raheem
Can I say
Mostert.
something about Hassan Reddick? There were people in the Eagles organization that think he may have been too worried
Yep.
about trying to get sacked.
They said he was a sack merchant. Forget allegedly might not be holding off the edge, just going for sacks.
That makes sense.
I don't know if I believe it though.
Yeah. You know, all these
I
people.
think,
Sacks are hard to come by, and to go out of your way to get it at the detriment of your team. And he's not really known for being a individualist player. So why would this come out now of all times?
yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
definitely interesting.
I
Just
think
the
it's
story that
I
came
think it's
out.
interesting, but it's weird. I think it's
Yeah.
weird.
And so, the last little bit of news that we're going to cover today, we're about 3-4 weeks from the NFL draft. We will be doing a NFL draft live stream, so be on the lookout for that. We'll be dropping a little bit more information here soon, but we'll be doing that. So let's look at the draft. Now we know for sure that the number one pick will be the Chicago Bears, and they will be taking Caleb Williams. At 2, you have the Washington Commanders. 3, the New England Patriots. At 4, Arizona Cardinals. 5, the LA Chargers. Giants are at 6. Titans are at 7. Falcons are at 8. Bears again at 9, and then the Jets are at 10. So we're looking at all that. What do we think is going to happen at these first couple of picks? Because I think we know the Bears are going to get theirs. At 2, the Commanders, they're going to go get their quarterback. Who do we think is going to be second off the board?
I know that unfortunately the Patriot staff is interested in Drake May. I like him, but I don't know. Kind of interesting, but I also don't want them to get Jaden Daniels. I'd prefer Jake May over Jaden Daniels
Dayton.
at 3. But ideally, we'd get Marvin Harrison Jr.
Stop
That's
it.
who I want. That's who I want.
Toby,
Being the Ohio State fan,
what's your
give me
problem?
Marvin Harrison. Give me Marvin Harrison.
You're gonna
Who's
get a
throwing to Marvin
quarterback at
Harrison?
3,
Hmm?
Who would be throwing to Marvin Harrison?
Casper.
Let Jacoby Brissett handle it for a year, and we go get
Stop
somebody
it.
else.
Stop it.
That's
Stop.
We
a
can't get
plan.
Caleb. Who
That's
else are we supposed to get?
career suicide.
Bo Nix.
So
Career
at
suicide. And
2,
if anything, it'd make him a lot better if he carried the Patriots to a playoff seed.
we got the Washington Commanders. For some reason, people have been talking about JJ McCarthy being at 2.
I've
Been an
seen a
old-
lot of stuff where people are like convinced he's gonna go like top 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of quarterbacks going to be gone early off the board. I think we're gonna see at 2 is either going to be Drake May or Jaden Daniels. At 3, Drake May or Jaden Daniels. At 4, Arizona's going to take the kid that he wants, Marvin Harrison. At 5, they're going to go a tackle or they're going to trade down, which would be smart. I think the Raiders are going to jump up. I think Minnesota are going to jump up. And I also think the Broncos are 3 teams that you should look at that are going to want to jump up into the top 6 to go get a quarterback. We got Penix that's still going to be out. JJ McCarthy's still going to be out. Who else? Bo Nix. Is that it? That's all I'm missing. I mean, I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of. I think we're gonna see all the quarterbacks gone in the top 10. Personally,
I don't think Michael Penix even necessarily goes first round. I don't think you use a first round draft pick on a 23-year-old quarterback.
but we know, and we've seen this happen so many times where teams they see all the other quarterbacks go off the board, so they get real gun ho happy. Granted, last year I would say we didn't see that because Will Levis was still on the board going into day 2. So I mean, there is a chance that he doesn't make it off the board. Do I think he should be number in the first round? Personally, no. I don't think the kid's that good, but I don't know. I'd be interested to see what happens.
I think there's really only about 5 teams that I confidently say are taking a quarterback in the first round.
And who are
I
they?
think I would say the Bears, the Commanders, the Patriots, the Vikings, and the Broncos. I think the Giants trade down at 6.
What about the Raiders?
I think the Raiders stick with Aiden O'Connell. I don't think they're taking a quarterback first round. I think they'd willingly take Penix in the second round, but I
Yeah.
think in the first round, they're not too concerned about a quarterback.
I think if the Giants are smart, there's no way in hell they draft a quarterback. I understand that you don't really like Daniel Jones right now, but for one, you're paying him too much money. For 2, you're not going to draft a quarterback with the 6th pick in the draft. I think you trade down. I think whenever the Raiders start calling, when the Broncos start calling, or when the Vikings start calling, that's when you give up, and that's when you get as much compensation as you want. I think we're going to see a lot of movement in the first round, but I mean, I don't know. I just personally don't think that. I think there's going to be more quarterbacks gone than you think they're going to be. I think there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks gone in the first round. So
I think it is a quarterback heavy draft this year.
yeah. Yeah, a bunch of mocks have Penix in the second round, Spindler Rattler, who's still out there, 4th round. Um, I mean, there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot of going on. So, well, but as we begin to wrap up, any final thoughts that we have, or that y'all have on any of the topics that we've talked about today?
There was one more thing I wanted to talk about. If I can find it. Let's see. Here it is. All right. This is just going back to women's basketball real quick.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest thing, not crazy, one of the biggest things we've seen, change, and this is in the WNBA, this is from the beginning of March when the Indiana Fever got that first overall pick. We saw an insane jump in ticket prices.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows that's where Caitlin Clark's going to end up going. Average price of Fever tickets are up 133%, up to $140. Their season opener in Connecticut is at 166. the lowest price. In the current, and well, I say current, a month ago, the get in price for their home opener, granted against the Liberty with Sabrina Ionescu, is $487. That's the
487.
400, about $500 just to sit in the nosebleeds of a WNBA game, which is just an insane amount of growth. And it's because we're seeing players like Caitlin Clark, and the media is actually giving them attention now instead of just ignoring them. Because that was one of the bigger issues, was they wouldn't even necessarily put them on TV.
I mean, but let's think about it. Like how many there's gonna be like so many games where we're gonna watch Caitlin Clark on ESPN. Like I'm so excited. Like it's funny to say this, but I'm actually excited to watch women's basketball. And I think there's a lot of other people who are excited as well. And it's gonna be something where finally, finally they're gonna have to figure it out, and they're gonna have to like start changing some things because I think the 79,000 dollars a year, it just isn't fair for these women. And I think there will be some changing because let's talk about the offer that Caitlin Clark got from the Big Three. Like she was offered $5 million to go play
Was
in the
it 10
Big Three,
games?
8 games with
8 games.
potential of 10, and she get merchandise. Like
And is eligible to still play in the WNBA.
exactly. And the thing is that like
And she'll
why
make more there.
if I'm her, why wouldn't I take that? Like, why wouldn't I do that? Because for one, y'all don't care enough to pay us let's say professional athlete salary. And so I think if I'm her, I'm gonna take that to the WNBA and I'm say, hey, you have to start changing some stuff, or I'm gonna go do this instead. Because at this point, I think it's a little unfair about what's going on in the WNBA when it comes to all those players. And honestly, like I'm gonna get on my soapbox about this real quick because I was talking to some people about this week, and I want to hear y'all opinion. So I have said that if you have an NBA team, you should also have a WNBA team. You already have the arena. Um, there's going to be a more of a need and want for it. And let's look at some of these teams in the NBA. Let's look at I mean, who's irrelevant right now in the NBA?
The
Um,
Hornets.
the Hornets.
Hornets are 100% irrelevant.
And they have the Greensboro Swarm as their affiliate, if
So
I'm
we
not
have the
mistaken.
Hornets. We have Utah, who's pretty questionable right now. I mean, these are
Utah, Utah's irrelevant no
yeah.
matter, like they just are.
You got Washington, who stinks. You have
The Pistons
Nets, who
were only
stink.
relevant because they were so bad.
Yeah, Pistons. Yeah, and the thing is that like you have all these teams. It's like, why can't if you're losing money for those games, so why not lose money for the WNBA games? And I think because the women's basketball period is so mainstream now, and so many people are enjoying it and watching it and liking it, I think there should be a shift of attitude when it comes from the top to bottom because if they aren't promoting it like they should be promoting it, then why should us as the people watch something that the ownerships don't even care about? And so I think they should take more pride in it, and they should definitely promote it more. And yeah, that's me on my soapbox when it comes to
Oh,
the WNBA.
I mean, I agree with you because there's people that will sit and watch the Portland Trailblazers play the Detroit Pistons and then
Exactly.
go, "Oh, the WNBA is too boring."
Exactly. It's like
Like, come on, you just watched some of the worst basketball you can watch in professional basketball, and you won't go watch like the Liberty play the Aces. Like,
yeah.
I think one of my favorite comments about the women's league is like some people just want them to lower the hoops. And I think that's too dumb.
It sounds
The
stupid.
the
It's
women are
stupid.
getting better. That's the thing. The women are already improving their games, and obviously there's always gonna be a disconnect from the men's to the women's league, but the product is already improving. So why not we hop on this train of hype?
well, and I think another thing that's important to look at is when you look at obviously it's different situations, but when you look at the NBA itself, when it first started, nobody cared.
Yeah.
Nobody gave a shit about the NBA. And it got to the point to where going into the 80s, the NBA was considering having to shut down. And then Magic and Bird come in and completely revive the league. and then you move into your Jordan and Kobe and LeBron eventually comes in. It takes time for a league to actually get going. So everybody's like, that's like, well, the WNBA, they should have been ready to go within like 10, 15 years. It's just not realistic. You got to give them time. And we're looking at that same about 30-year period where now the WNBA is going to start taking off.
Yeah.
And it's because it takes time for people to get better. Basketball wasn't accessible to girls, when they were younger, but now it's starting to get more and more accessible. You're going to start seeing a larger talent pool. You're going to start seeing better players. It's that simple. It
Yeah.
just needed time.
And I'm excited for it. I'm one of those people who I'm excited to see what happens, and I'm locked in for it. I'm pushing all of my opinions and positively towards the WNBA. Plain and simple. Will I be watching some of the games this season? Absolutely, absolutely. Why not? So, I mean, because we're gonna get Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese in the WNBA, and I'm sure people will watch that game. So,
Yeah.
anyway, if y'all don't have anything else, I'm done. Let us know how you feel about this new format. I'm excited to see how it works out. Um, be on the lookout for the announcement for the NFL draft live stream. But yeah, I've been your host, Davion. That's been Lillian, Oronde, and this has been the post game. Peace.
Peace.